I know what I saw out there.
Phil walks the tree line when the sun goes down. Boots in the gravel on the edge of town. Backpack rattles with a lantern and a map, looking for the things that never make the trap. Old folks whisper when they see him pass. Boy's been chasing shadows in the midnight grass. But Phil just smiles at the cold night air, 'cause something out there knows he's there. In the rustle of leaves, in the creak of the pine, in the fog where the footprints twist the line. He's the Dogman, Teepee hunter, roving through the night, chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight. From forgotten forests to the deserts deep, where the old bones hide and the spirits creep. With a camera and courage and a trail to see, he'll follow any legend through eternity. Yeah, the world's full of whispers most folks never see, but they all know Phil. He slept in ruins where the cold winds cry. Watch strange lights dancing in a cold black sky. Track bent branches where the tall grass sways. Heard something breathing in the forest haze. Every dusty road and every haunted bend holds another secret he's about to defend. And when the fire burns low and the coyotes sing, you can bet he's hunting something strange again. Through the static and dark, through the myth and the lore, there's a howl in the hills he can't ignore. He's the Dogman, Teepee hunter, roaming through the night, chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight. From forgotten and free.
Hi, welcome to Friday Night Files. So pleased you could make it. Hope you've had a good week. Um, it's been a bit of a good week this week. I'll tell you why, because I've managed. It's a bit of a funny one. I managed to get a guy on. I really wanted to get on for quite some time. He's got a YouTube channel. Now he has lately been delving into authorship. So he's been writing. Um, and he's come up with some great books as well. He's written one which is on Amazon. You can find it on a QR code. I'll put it up for you so that anytime you want to, if you're especially if you're on PC or TV, just use your phone, point the camera at the QR code. You know the score, and there it is. It will take you straight to it. The guy is Rob Prevo, and he's got a YouTube channel all about Dogman, Bigfoot, and monsters, basically. Monstrous podcast. And I wanted to have him on because of his book that he's written. It's a very interesting book. And I just want to share with you some insights into the man himself with Rob. And I'm very, very lucky to have him on. This was a recorded show. Um, Now, we couldn't tie up dates specifically for the usual live. So this was a recorded one just a short while back that we're dropping as a premiere. Okay. Now I will be on the chats. Hopefully, Rob's going to try and make it on the chats as well. So look out for him on that. But I'll definitely be on there to answer any questions if you have any, as far as I'm possible. I know that I can answer. But without any delay, I'm going to bring Rob on now. And this is not a inquisition. This is what like we normally do on the show. This is a conversation. This is just having a chat and seeing where the chat leads us. Okay, but all the while it's going to be pertaining to his work, his research, and his experiences. Okay. All right then. Thank you very much for listening. And here we go. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you, Mr. Phil?
Mr. Phil's not too bad on this very day. Is Mr. Phil's a bit hot? I can tell you. It's about I think it's about 28 today, 28, 29 degrees
Mhm.
C. So yeah, it's been a bit hot. The other day it was 36, Rob, and that was
Right.
like yeah. And we're not, over in the UK just lately. 2 days ago, well, 3 days ago actually. I was in a cardigan. It was really cold. It wasn't warm at all. And I had I mean, the missus, she's going through the change at the moment. Yeah, she won't mind me saying. I hope she doesn't anyway. You might see a frying pan going over my head in a minute. But and that won't be AI. That actually will be a frying pan over my head.
Be the
Um,
real thing, yeah.
And if you see that, then you know exactly what it is, and it'll probably sound like this. um, so yeah, it's the change in temperature is so quick, it's hard to adjust. I
Right.
don't know if that's the same for you. Is it the same over there?
I well, I live in the South, the southern state, one of the southern states in the United States. So I live in Arkansas, and I live in the northeastern part of the state. So yeah, a lot of times we get where it'll be really sudden. You'll go all the way, you'll go almost immediately from winter into summer, and it seems like we don't have a spring at all. This year we've been really lucky. We've had quite a bit of a spring, so we've had time for temperature change. It's been really dry, so we've started to get some rain. Uh, but I know what you mean about the temperature thing. This morning, quite early, I took the dogs out for a walk, and it was actually a little bit chilly, which was nice because I'm more of a
Mm.
fall and winter person than I am a summer person. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's warmed up. I mean, we're old school. We do everything in Fahrenheit over here. So it was, I believe it was the high 70s, 80s today.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be about right, wouldn't it? That'd be comparable with,
Yeah.
around about, yeah, 32 degrees C, something like that.
Yeah,
30.
the unfortunate thing for us is that we have a really high humidity, so our humidity stays well above 70, and it's getting to where it's starting to be close to almost 100% humidity this time of year. So,
Oh, it's a
uh,
killer, isn't it? It's
oh
the
yeah,
humidity is just like it zaps
yeah,
you.
yeah.
But Rob, what's the tick situation? I keep hearing and looking at videos, especially in the States, where it's like there's an influx. There's like kind of like a swarms and swarms and swarms of ticks, and a lot of researchers and a lot of hunters are so complaining. And a lot of them are mentioning about tick boxes, which have kind of like been dropped. I saw one video, Rob, and there was like a suspected helicopter dropping a box and it was all full of ticks in this field. And he was like saying, "Look, that's a setup. Someone's doing it on purpose." Would you?
Yeah.
Did you have
Th-
that?
there's a lot to do with ticks. When you get down the south, you're dealing with, not just ticks, but you have ticks, chiggers, mosquitoes, things like that. Chiggers are these little bitty mite type bugs that if you
Mm.
get back in the brush, oh my goodness, they will be all over. You won't know it for a couple hours, and then all of a sudden, by the time you start to itch, it's too late. You can't really do
Yeah.
much about it. But yeah, I'd say probably over 20 years ago, I actually got one of the tick fevers. It's Rocky Mountain spotted tick fever. I had that, and it was pretty devastating. Of course, for the most part, got over it. But you have Lyme's disease, and then you have the alpha gal, and a couple of others that people, especially the alpha gal, people really worry about that down in the south because we love to eat meat. We like to be able to eat, our pork, our beef, and things like that. And if you have alpha gal, you really can't handle that. It can, send you into give you problems to where you can't breathe. It's an allergic reaction and everything. So
Yeah.
we're all trying to be very careful about that. Now, when you were talking about, the ticks and the ticks being released and some of the conspiracy theories that go on around that, I know there is one that goes all the way back to what they call the Montauk experiments.
Mhm.
And there was a doctor who was supposed to have been working on, or scientist who was supposed to have been working on being able to infect these ticks with these diseases and things, and then they would be released on enemy troops. And they ended up, according to that story, testing it on the human population. So, I'm not sure whether it's true or it's not. I don't know how much evidence actually backs that story up, but ticks are pretty bad. A lot of
Mm.
people think, well, if it gets cold enough, well, that'll freeze and that'll kill the ticks, and we won't have bad ticks the next year. That's not even possible. You could take a tick and you could stick it in a glass of water and stick it in your freezer if you wanted to for the next 20 years, and as soon as you take it out and thaw it out, that tick's going to walk off. Um, but
Crazy.
the only way to deal with the ticks is either some kind of insecticide, which we don't want to do, or burning off the area. If we have controlled burns of the areas every so often, it'll help take care of the tick population and the chigger population.
Yeah. I know what you mean. We have those little flies over here. The little, if you're talking about the little tiny black, we call them storm flies. And they're so titchy witchy, tiny little things, and they land on your skin. You don't even feel them land. Uh,
Mm,
and 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 they kind of I've never known them to bite, So that over here, they may not sort of bite, but I've never known to bite, but yeah, they do kind of, feel by the time you know they're there, there's loads of them there on you.
Yeah, yeah. Now
Yeah.
the chiggers that I'm talking about, they look very much like a tick, but they're very, very small, like the smaller than the head of a pin, and they're red. And they will
Oh,
actually
no, they're not,
burrow.
no.
Yeah, these things will burrow into your skin, and they're pretty hard to get out.
Oh, damn, what?
Yeah,
Uh, wow. No. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good,
no,
is it?
no, it's not. It's
Yeah.
not good at all. And
And I suppose
that'll
if
slow down a lot of researchers in the spring and summertime.
yeah, and I suppose the whatever they've got is barbed, so if you take the actual body of the thing off, its barb is still in you, I suppose.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of fragile really, aren't we? You know, as
Oh,
as
we
as
are.
creatures,
We are
you know?
definitely.
When you kind of like, you know, you think, what, for the past 400,000 years or whatever of evolution, you know, we haven't really evolved with nature very well, have we? You
No, we
know?
really haven't. It's kind of surprising. There's a bit of a paradox that goes around with human beings being the top of the food chain or the ultimate, predator. If it wasn't for our ability to build tools and to work together socially, which I kind of wonder about sometimes,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
we would have been run out of town. We would have gone extinct a long time ago.
Mm,
Because there's many, many predators, many different things that can outdo us, you know,
yeah,
on even footing. But we learned how to build tools and spears, weapons, different things like that, so fire, so that we could kind of outmatch those things that were trying to hunt us down in the middle of the night.
yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, and what we do is we tend to, like you say, you know, the ability of a larger brain to get our heads around manipulating the environment to suit our own needs,
Hmm.
to secure ourselves, has been the only saving grace, and manipulating the environment takes tooling. And, you know, that's been the only way really that we've managed to survive so successfully as we have. Let's face it. I think you're quite right. Um, but that brings me to, I mean, you know, I often thought about this, Rob, and I thought, well, I'd like to get your take on it. If we're honed and creatures are honed by evolution, okay,
Hmm.
so Um, a deer will is, naturally a, prey. It's not a predator. It will its eyes are on the side of its head. Um,
Right,
it's acutely aware of what is around it and can hear what's around it, and its, instantaneous speed is what saves it a lot of
right.
times. Okay, right, so we got that. And that's honed by evolution and environment.
Hmm.
Um, and then we have things like black bear, brown bear, not so much brown bear, but we have like black bear, which are predators,
Right.
cougars, predators. We have in this country, one of the biggest predators that we have is foxes,
Hmm.
naturally. And through evolution and through environment, they've uh, 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 molded their physicality into something which can take down other creatures and eat them.
Right.
Um, Now, we have lost an awful lot of our spectrum of sight. From point of view of our eyesight, we only see a very small spectrum. Um, we can't see infrared. A few creatures can, but we can't. Um, and even with our vision, we can see the peripheral, but not clearly. And the peripheral we use as our um, sometimes what is in front of us. What I'm trying to get at is what's in front of us is blind to us more so than what our peripheral shows. We're
Hmm.
more aware of our peripheral, even though that's like kind of linked almost to our subconscious. Um, I believe. Um, we don't have claws. We have nails, but we don't have claws. Our teeth are pretty flat, built for chewing a lot of times. We do have incisors here, but
Hmm.
not much in a way. Um, and we suffer with the effects of gravity greatly. All my
Hmm.
back hurts, you know. I mean, I won't go on about all my ailments, Rob. I won't even go there because you'll be asleep. Yeah, but I'll just mention, herniated discs in the back, you know, operation full hip replacement, not 18 months ago. I won't go on, but
Right.
gravity hasn't been kind to me.
Right.
Um, so, when you think, okay, if we've been here for 400,000 years or however long we've been here and evolved, we haven't really evolved very well. Now, Dogman, people have seen, and I call it a type 3 Dogman, the Dogman which you see on AI with the diamond shaped body, massive big muscular legs, thin waist, big claws, long muzzle, white
Hmm.
teeth, fangs, the whole berserk bit, right? What pray would that take down? What has that through evolution, would you say, what why has that been honed to look and to be such a apex predator when and if it's evolution and its environment which has done this as it has with most other animals from insects to rodents, then with Dogman, it makes me wonder, Rob, what was it honed to take down? What was it evolved to take down? What would it prey have been?
Well, that's a very good question. And, at the heart of what my schooling was evolutionary biology. So, understand really what you're asking. The funny thing is, you kind of the question is straightforward, but the answer is in no way, shape, or form that easy to come up with. Because what you're looking at when you look at Dogman, let's say it's a flesh and blood creature that has gone through evolution to become what it is nowadays. So you have to ask the question, well, then what was it prior to that? Was it a canine? Are we looking at a canine wolf like creature that has gone through evolution and many different steps? So you're looking at one that can function not only as a quadruped, but also as a biped. Not only are you looking at that, but you have to have a change in the way that the hip and the spine work together if you're going to do that. If you've got a creature that was once a biped or a quadruped and is now working as a functional biped that can run, that can reach, that can stand, that can do what we're doing, for the most part, you're looking at something that's beyond what a wolf is and even beyond what a bear is. Bears can stand on their hind legs and they can kind of teeter around for a little bit, but they can't really do like a full out run or anything like that. You're also looking at the hands, what we would call the forepaws. Um, they're always described as being very human-like, very much like a raccoon's hands, where they have claws and or elongated nails, able to manipulate things. Looks like they have a thumb with them. You're asking a lot out of evolution because there's a lot of things that have to happen in the interim of being a canine like a wolf to this werewolf looking thing, because you have to have a reason behind why is this creature going to stand up sometimes? Why is this creature going to be able to run sometimes? What is the advantage of that? What is the advantage of developing paws into claws? Um, it's a really deep question because you then have to look at, well, okay, like you asked, what would it be that this thing would track down and eat? What's the necessity of it being this and the advantage of it being a predator like this? Because evolution doesn't work. Just do things just for the fun of it. There has to be a reason and an advantage to all that, or else that creature
Yeah.
is going to fail. So when we look at animals that develop opposable thumbs or
Mm,
constructed something like a human being's hands, you're looking at an animal that's probably climbed in trees. It's no longer simply terrestrial. It's arboreal in nature, and there are reports definitely of dogmen being in trees, climbing up the sides of houses, and different things like that. So that lends to that. That makes sense.
mm,
When we look at stories of dogmen being able to run just as fast on four legs as it can on two, we have to wonder why. What is the advantage of being able to stand up? And when you look at a canine, there's not really much of an advantage to doing that. Canines typically travel long distances. Wolves are known to wear down their prey. They don't go nipping at their heels necessarily. If you got a pack of wolves and they decide they want this moose that they found, they will stay on the trail of this moose and they will make that moose run itself basically to death, to the point to where they can go down and very easily take down this moose because it has no energy left to fight them off. Um, it's not like the big cat that pounces on the back of something and drags it down and takes out the windpipe or something like that. The wolves and dogs hunt differently. Now, when they do take down their prey, it's very savage and very nasty and very messy. It's nothing um, like, it's not as pleasant as a big cat may take you out. A big cat will take you out for the most part and then begin eating, and dogs, canids do this a completely different way. Um, it's similar to the way that a bear would do it. Now, a bear is omnivorous. Most canids are what we would call, they would be mildly omnivorous. Uh, they're not dedicated carnivores. We know that dogs, wolves, foxes, other canids like that, they'll eat grasses, fruits, whatever's around, bugs, different things like that. So they're a bit of an opportunist. So when we're looking at what would drive this evolutionary change to where you have a large prey item that would need to be taken down by something like a werewolf looking type creature or a dog man, that's pretty hard to nail down. That really is, because if you look at what wolves are able to do, they do it quite efficiently. So where's the need for change? And there really isn't one, which sometimes makes me question, along with the descriptions of Dogman, whether Dogman is actually a canid or not. I have my
in
suspicions that maybe it's something else.
interesting. Yes, yes. I mean, yeah, you've in your book, I noticed on, Amazon, in your book, it's not a storybook, is it? It's more like a is it like a textbook, is it?
Yes, yes. Now the book you're talking about is Animology Volume 1, and it's Introduction to Concepts.
I'll
It's
just
gonna be
get that on the screen. I'll get it on the
yeah,
screen so people at home, take a little look at this, okay? Now it's brand new book, okay?
yes,
So, it's just out, and like a lot of books, they bring them out in hardcover first. So, which obviously is a bit more expensive because it's hardback. Um, and then it sort of filters down into cheaper versions with paperback. But just take a look at this and keep it in your mind because I'm going to ask Rob a couple of questions about it and see what it's about really myself. Let's get it up for you. Aha, here we go. Okay, this is the one, isn't it?
Yes, that is it. That is
Okay.
Animology Volume 1.
Right, I'm just gonna quickly read the book summary, okay, for people, because you may not be able to uh, read it because it looks quite small on the screen, but
Yeah.
um, I'll see if I can get it a bit bigger actually for people. There we go. Right, let's have a little read, and then um, let's have a look. Right, this book argues that anomalies are not rare. Responsible methods for dealing with them are rather than treating the unexplained as entertainment or ideology, it introduces anomology as a disciplined, evidence centered framework for investigating disputed claims across cryptozoology, parapsychology, ufology, and the broader paranormal landscape. The text surveys how these specialized fields develop, what they have contributed, where they repeatedly fail, in brackets, especially in evidence handling, bias control, and premature conclusions, unbracketed, and how in an investigative mindset can replace belief versus debunk reflexes. Across the chapters, the emphasis remains consistent. Separate descriptions from explanation, classify before theorizing, and let the quality of evidence, not the appeal of the narrative, determine what can responsibly be concluded. Fantastic. Right. So I gather from that. Oh, let me get the people up again. Sorry. Right, what happened there? Oh yeah, here we go. I'm sorry. Right then.
Not a
And
problem.
myself as well. Right. Let's have a look. Where am I? I've disappeared, you know. Hang on.
We've
Uh,
lost Bill.
yeah, do you know, I've lost myself. Yeah. Right. If this is still in after the edit, then I'll be. If- why am I? Honestly. Um. Okay. Hang on. Bu- Right. Okay. Hang on a minute. Right. Okay. Um. Yeah. What I really liked about that, Rob, the book reading the back of it, was you mentioned at the end that it's not narrative based; it's
Right.
following evidence based,
Exactly.
which which is brilliant because a lot of times we did speak, privately before the show about this, and the importance of following evidence and the importance of bringing evidence biased uh, 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 forward to the people because
Mhm.
there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of made up nonsense going on at the moment, and it's
Right.
confusing. And I think I see it as my job, in bringing, like mentioned before the show, in bringing people together and people's evidence and people's accounts, which I don't know 100% are true. I wasn't there when they witnessed it, but after talking to them, and if you like vetting them, I kind of like have the idea, Rob, that they're pretty genuine, and this is what your book's about. It's about, in a lot of ways, you saying that at, at, in the actual description. It's not following a narrative, and the narrative is very sensationalized now. That's what people
Yes.
tend to go with to get the views, to get this. They sensationalize, and it starts to sort of elaborate on something that actually didn't happen or doesn't exist. Um, was that hard to sort of for you? Was it hard to write a to get enough evidence in that book to write, um, uh, 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 to write the accounts down or to write to do the description
No,
in the
not
book.
really. In this book, really, there's, to be quite honest, there's not a lot of accounts as far as, well, did I take that point of view that we were talking about and use that while I was doing interviews and put those in the book. This is more about responsibility. And I think that investigators like me who've been doing this for over 30 years and researchers, we have a responsibility to the people who are coming up behind us, the next generation of cryptozoologists, parapsychiatrists, parapsychologists, ufologists, whatever you want to call them, people who are interested in trying to actually prove or disprove these things. We have a responsibility to do more than the generation prior to us has done. If you look at the subject of Sasquatch, how much more in the past 20 years have we really gained that we didn't have 20 years prior to that? Well, not much. If you think about it, the biggest film that anybody can think of happened back in what, 1968, which was the Patterson Gimlin film, which has always been questioned as to whether it was real or it wasn't, or been debunked and things like that. And in the grand scheme of things, that part really doesn't matter, but it's what have we done as investigators and researchers to further the subject? Have we developed better techniques? Have we gathered better information? Have we gathered better data? Have we done the analysis? Have we
Mm,
proven and disproven certain theories? And the answer is no, we really haven't. We haven't worked hard to disprove certain theories and hold our ground on those because some theories out there, honestly, or hypotheses as far as the origins of Sasquatch, Dogman, Nessie, UFOs, ghosts, all these different things. A lot of these hypotheses and theories really need to be put to rest. Some of them, they do, and then other
mhm.
ones have certain merit to them that we can follow. But we have to do that through the evidence and not through what Robert says or what Phil says or what, any other investigator might say or any narrative that I might want to push. I don't want you to follow a narrative that I push. I want you to follow the evidence and let it lead you to an answer.
Yeah. Makes sense, absolutely. I agree. Are you gonna put your head on the block and, when it comes to the Patty film, what's your take on it?
I will put my head on the block. I'm not gonna say that it's a hoax, and I'm not gonna say that it's real. What I would say is that how much does it really matter? Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things if it was a hoax? If it was a hoax tomorrow, if I could prove, or anybody could prove without a doubt tomorrow that it was a hoax, what difference does that make for all of the eyewitnesses, including myself, who have actually witnessed Sasquatch activity? Well, if you're somebody who has actually witnessed the stuff, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you know what you saw, you know what you experienced. And if uh, the Patterson Gimlin film proves to be a hoax, well, that kind of sucks. But um, okay, it doesn't change the subject as far as whether these creatures exist. I think the problem is that we still have, even within our own community, this weird view almost that there is this singular Sasquatch. And you talk to people who don't know anything about Bigfoot and cryptids, and you talk about Bigfoot and they're like, oh yeah, I saw him, he was over here or he was over there. Well, we're not talking about a singular individual, we're talking about a species, a group of these creatures and their distribution and where they're at, and not just this one thing. So if this one bit of evidence turns out to be false, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter.
I can I counter that?
Of course, you can.
Okay. Um, I would say that it does matter, and I'll tell you why I think it does matter is
Okay.
because, all right, um, uh, it matters because we don't have evidence, material evidence, very little, very, very little.
Okay.
The only the only evidence we do have is um, testimony from witnesses,
Yes.
mostly,
Yes.
mostly, okay, mostly, not all everything, mostly, I say. Now, um, because of the frequency and because of the accuracy of this testimony from people all over the world,
Hmm.
all over the world, um, who've seen a large humanoid ape man of some sorts, which doesn't fit in to the Homo sapien line at all. That looks and acts completely different. Um, that has abilities which, to us, seem like magic, seem like supernatural abilities.
Hmm.
Now, all of us, if we are experiencers, we've experienced something which we cannot physically prove.
Right.
We can recount the event uh, to the best of our ability and stand by our guns that we saw this event. Um, if I personally, if I was to lie knowingly, lie about the event and perpetuate that lie for most of my life, I would not be lying to you. I would not be lying to anyone at home. I'd be lying to myself,
Hmm.
and I would be um, f- further damaging the area of research that many people have studied for a great number of years.
Right.
Um, Now, being that we don't have uh, uh, any physical um, evidence really to back up any claims. All we do have is either footage, which a lot of times since the Patterson Gimlin film, it's been some have been quite credible. There's that one with that Bigfoot which is carrying a baby. Uh,
Hmm.
um, but a lot of it, especially the Dogman footages, have been a lot dubious, a lot of them dubious. A lot of them could have been AI. That has not helped us one bit because of AI and because AI hasn't been watermarked, which please, if anyone is working for any of the platforms at all, please make it a ruling that you got to watermark AI because it would not give us a heads up and cut the wheat from the chaff with all the stuff that's coming out. Um, but so because of that, we're floundering. And if it's proven with this capturing Bigfoot documentary that it was a setup, it,
Hmm.
if it was proven that it was um, done because Patterson was, he was hard up, he was struggling. and they'd rented a very expensive camera. They didn't want to go home empty-handed, and they decided, look, yes, we will create a scenario which will um, appease a lot of people that Bigfoot does exist. It just seems odd that we haven't caught anything quite so clear, and a creature that is a creature that is so in tune with its environment, a creature that can manipulate or seem to manipulate in many circumstances the camera. It can manipulate the device on which we're trying to capture um, the image. Seems to be able to manipulate that. It seems to have abilities we don't fully understand. And yet we seem to have footage of a Bigfoot strolling across a creek, which has been the standard for 60 years. And for 60 years, we haven't captured by any researcher anything close to as clear as that. Just seems, now I don't believe in, I'm not a fatalist, I don't believe in coincidence. I really don't. I think
Hmm.
that everything is mapped out from the day we're born to the day we pass over. We believe, we in our heads believe, oh, if we come to a turnpike, if we turn right, I'm going to decide to turn right. Well, actually, no, I do believe that we're meant to turn right because events, when you do turn right further on down that road, it may take a year, it may take 10 years. You'll think to yourself and look back, wow, I don't know what it was that made me turn right, but I sure am glad I did. Um, I think that with events that happened on that occasion, for me, it was too much of a coincidence to believe. With the animal Bigfoot, 60 years and we haven't had anything as close to that, and yet our cameras and our um, phones we have improved dramatically, and we haven't got anything as close as that since. Seems a bit absurd. Now, if it is a lie, and if people do tell fibs about um, these creatures, it doesn't matter. You're quite right. It doesn't matter too much to us because at the end of the day, we don't know, we weren't there. But if you're offering evidence on film that that is something which it isn't, that I do believe is wrong and deceitful. Everyone could be mistaken in that time, in that zone.
Hmm.
Our senses can fool us. But when you're premeditating something, then I think that is damaging for the whole area of research we're in. And this goes also for things like paranormal, as in ghosts and specters and Dogman and all of it. I've always said, whenever I've done any filming, you may sit there watching one of my films for an hour, sometimes longer, and you won't see, I can't guarantee we'll see anything on a live if I go out in the forest at night. I can't
Hmm.
guarantee we'll see anything. But know one thing, that I'm out there and I'm trying.
Right.
And that's halfway the point. That's halfway the point. These
Hmm.
things, we have to be out there and try and do it. So I think, yeah, on the grand scheme of things, that's all we have to go on is testimony and a few excerpts of footage. And I think that, yeah,
Well,
we should really kind of, I think we should hold it at least to account if it isn't right.
I think that's true. I think you have a point. Um, as an investigator, definitely eyewitness accounts mean something. We're not going to go blindly investigate an area where we don't know or there hasn't been any reports of there being activity, whether it be cryptozoological, paranormal, ufological, whatever that might be. We're not really going to be wasting time going in blindly looking at, well, if I go wander this patch of woods, will I run into something? We're going to be basing that definitely off of eyewitness testimony. And I think eyewitness testimony is extremely important, but we have to realize that eyewitness testimony is also flawed. Um, if you look at it from the way the police or the FBI or any investigative group might look at it, eyewitness testimony is questionable at best sometimes because eyewitnesses get information wrong. But that doesn't mean all of it is wrong. So we have to um, be careful. We have to be good investigators. We have to be good detectives. We have to get in there and we have to look at the evidence. And you were talking about there wasn't much evidence as far as Bigfoot. Um, or Sasquatch, that's yes and no. We've actually gotten quite a bit over the years. Tracks number one. When we look at the work that's been done by uh, people looking at dermal ridges and different things like that that have shown up on some of these tracks, or the differences. You have the expected look of a specific Bigfoot track, that everybody thinks of. But the reality is that these tracks show different things. You may have, and there are tracks that have been recovered where these animals had problems with their feet, um, injuries, cuts, burns, um, missing toes, genetic issues uh, that have popped up. We've had hair samples that have repeatedly been brought in. We've had scat. We've had all kinds of different stuff. And you mentioned too that these when we get into Sasquatch, talking about them being something not at all like a human. And I would argue that they are very human. And I think a lot of the genetics and the DNA tests bear witness to that these things are very close to being human. I would go out on a limb far enough to say that I think they are another type of human being. And I think Ron Moorhead talked about that as well, where you look at Homo sapien. Homo sapien sapien means that we have the ability to carry on conversations, to talk, to form languages. Uh, and in all of the accounts, and I witnessed it myself, their yells, their screams, the wood knocks, that's communication. And I have no problem saying I think they're another type of human being that we just haven't discovered yet. Now, when you
Mm.
look at abilities and beyond powers beyond mortal men, without sounding too much like you're talking about Superman, um, and we talk about evolution, if you had human beings following a different evolutionary path than the one that we've followed, they're going to appear much more as the guardian of the forest. They're going to be able, you got to think whenever we go out into the middle of the woods and we're looking for them, that's like somebody stepping into your living room in the middle of the night to try and find you. Well, you know that living room, you know that house, you know where to hide, you know how to move through it without people knowing that you're even there if you're any good at what you do. And you're talking about the quote unquote ninja of the forest who moves around and knows where to hide. Um, yeah, and as far as other footage, we've had plenty of other footage. There's a lot of other footage that has been brought in of possible Sasquatch. Tons of it. A lot of it has been disputed because it doesn't fit what certain groups wanted to fit as far as what Patty looks like. We've got Patty, so that means that every Bigfoot looks like that. I know tons of people who have had eyewitness encounters who will tell you straight up it looked nothing like Patty. And they even wonder if the Patterson Gimlin film is real because of what they saw, because they saw something that looked completely different, much more human, much longer hair, much bigger, much more savage. I think there's a lot of things that are happening simultaneously. We can't discount some of the paranormal stuff that happens whenever you look at Bigfoot. I've been on Bigfoot investigations where you see flashes of light in the middle of the night, or you see orbs, or just battery drains. I've had numerous times where we went out with fully charged batteries. You get into an area, you kind of get the hair stands up on the back of your neck, and before you know it, all your batteries are dead. So that's something that we see in paranormal stuff with ghosts and things like that. But that same thing happens with UFOs too. So that's why entomology, that's why I developed entomology, is where we start to take away and we shed off some of this. Well, it has to be cryptozoological. No, it has to be paranormal. No, it has to be UFOs. Well, all of these are anomalies. These are things that should not, theoretically, according to what we believe in our understanding of the universe, these are things that should not be happening, but they do. They do happen because the supernatural is natural, the paranormal is normal. And all of these things actually occur within our world on a daily basis. We just haven't learned how to understand that. And we see it as being something far beyond what should be happening, and it should be at the will of the gods, or it's demonic, or it's this, or it's that, when actually it's just something that naturally occurs. If it didn't naturally occur, it wouldn't happen.
Mm. Yeah.
So, when you look at Bigfoot, there's a lot of evidence out there. It's just we turn a blind eye to a lot of it. Now, getting into Dogman, Dogman's one of those subjects where I've really been delving into, especially with my work with the NADP, the North American Dogman Project, which I really back up, and I really believe in what they're doing. I believe if I didn't, I wouldn't be working with them. And I work with their analytics. I run their analytics department.
Right.
When you said something about footage as far as Dogman, I will go out on a limb and I'll say this right here. I have yet to see video footage that is supposedly Dogman that I think is actually really and truly Dogman. I haven't. I have yet to see anything. Uh, and as far as a lot of the popular photographs, historical photographs of Dogman, most all of those have been debunked, but either by me or someone else that I know who can very easily improve the debunking and the subject and where it originally originated from and how it was manipulated. Um,
Mm.
but do I think there's something there? Absolutely. I absolutely think there's something there. I don't think every eyewitness is a liar or delusional or anything like that. I think there's something there. I think there's something to this whole Dogman story. It's a matter of collecting, again, the evidence. Just like if you look at Sasquatch through the years, we've collected tracks. We know pretty much what a Bigfoot track is going to look like. We know the consistency of Bigfoot as far as what what we're looking at in behaviors and things like that, and the wood knocks and all this other stuff. We've yet to really do that with Dogman. Dogman has been kind of all over the place and never nailed down. If I went and I said, okay, where's the database of Dogman tracks? Well, there isn't one, because whenever you go on Google and you start looking for Dogman tracks, every track is different. There's, every single one of them. I know because I've delved into it. I've been working on it. I'm actually working on trying to get a database built of Dogman tracks. And everyone that supposedly is a Dogman track where it walked on its hind legs doesn't compute, because when you look at the way that the biology of a dog's rear paw works, they don't it's either a dog's track that's been manipulated by somebody whenever they took a picture of it, or it's just something completely different. They decided it's going to be a Dogman track. But I
Mm.
think the evidence is there. Don't get me wrong. The evidence is there. The eyewitnesses are there. The hair samples are there. I know. I've seen the hair samples. I have a hair sample. I know people who have hair samples. But what is it? Is it a canine? Is it a primate? Is it something else? but we have to let the evidence lead us there. And that's the
Yeah.
problem that people don't want to do. They want to come up with they want to put the cart before the horse every single time because you'll automatically with any subject, we're going to divide it into 800 different groups like any religion. If I'm going to throw Christianity under the bus. Okay, so you have Christianity. You ended up with the Catholic Church, Lutheran Church, the Baptist Church, the Church of England, this church over here, that church over there, and they all argue about minute little bitty details. Well, cryptozoology, parapsychology, and ufology are just as guilty as any religion on the planet. Because when you look at Bigfoot, you have the flesh and blood group, you have the paranormal group, you have the uh it's from a different dimension, or it's because of the Nephilim, or it's this or it's that. And it wasn't the evidence that led people to believe that, it was their personal biases and beliefs that led them there. If you follow the evidence, you might not like where it goes, but it'll get you to the truth.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, I like it. I
Yeah,
like it a
well,
lot. Food for thought. Food for
yeah.
thought. That's very
I mean,
good.
I've,
Yeah.
I've I've been very passionate about this for a long time. That's why I developed animology, because I saw the falsehoods in cryptozoology. I saw the falsehoods in parapsychology, ufology, the paranormal. I saw how it's been manipulated through YouTube stories and this and that and Facebook groups that don't look for evidence. They look for something to keep that paradigm that they believe going. And I'm of this opinion. I mean, there's a lot of stories or theories out there that I think are complete bull. But if the evidence leads me to that and
Mm.
it proves that hypothesis or theory that I thought was bull, I'll eat my words and I'll tell you. I'll be the first one to say, you know what? I thought it was a bunch of baloney, but the evidence led me to believe these people were right. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we have to do.
Yes, I like that. I like that a lot. That is food for thought. Definitely. Um, right, yeah. I mean, with Dogman, um, right, let's single out Dogman. I would say
Okay.
to you, look, uh historical records from uh Alexander the Great through to, was it Marco Polo? Was it Marco Polo? I think it was Marco Polo as well.
You're talking about the
Um,
cyanocephaly.
yeah, yeah. Talking about cynocephaly, also there's, also strong correlations with now, werewolves are different to dogmen, I believe.
Okay.
Uh, but, there's an overlap there. I think there's confusion sometimes between Dogman and a Bigfoot. I think sometimes because a Dogman, there is a different type of Dogman that can look like a Bigfoot with a flatter face,
You're talking
a
about a
more
gugway.
stockier body. Mm.
Mhm.
Uh, but there's historical evidence which kind of it screams out to me. Um, it screams out, look, when with us, we have we have the ability to take a stage. I'm taking a stage, you're taking a stage now.
Right.
If we're lucky, people are listening. Back in the day, they didn't have that. They had soapboxes where they could
Mhm.
talk to a small number of people, and and it would only be maybe people in a village, and um, they would talk perhaps about a werewolf entity with a humanoid figure with a wolf's head or a dog's
Mhm.
head. So they definitely had nothing to gain from that. They had nothing to gain at all from that. Sometimes it was they would be more in touch with nature, and they would utilize nature in their rhymes, in their songs, in their folklore, because back then, as you pointed out quite correctly, their animals' abilities, normal animals' abilities, a bat's ability to fly in the dark without using any sight would
Hmm.
have been supernatural to any person of the 15th century, the 16th century, or 17th century. It would have been absolutely supernatural to them. Um, Now we have the ability to talk to a lot of people, and that goes in conjunction with the ability to a lot of people make a living.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that tends to override that fact of truth and evidence,
Yep.
because, it kind of like everyone's got a story, even if they haven't got a story, they've got a story. And it may be paranormal, it may be ghost, it may be this, maybe that. So cutting the wheat from the chaff with those is very difficult. But centuries ago, when they spoke of dogmen and they spoke of this creature, there wasn't anything really to gain except maybe um, being called a being pushed to the peripheral of society in which they lived, and being maybe an outcast of some sort for being I don't know what the word would be, um, maybe a bit of a nut job. Let's face it.
Hmm.
So why then were those stories, those accounts, documented and handed down if it wasn't true?
Okay, so you've got several different things that are going on, especially when you look at the cyanocephaly. Let's take Saint Christopher, for instance. Saint Christopher is always depicted as being the dog-headed saint who later on changed and was no longer like that. Uh, what we do know about Saint Christopher is that he is supposedly from the area of Canaan, and the word Canaan or Canaanite is very close in Old Greek and Latin to the same word as canine. Um, and we think there may have been some issues with referring to these people as canines or Canaan, the Canaanites. They were also viewed as being cannibals. We do know that cyanocephaly, that term has actually been used in the past to refer to baboons, because a lot of primates were referred to as a type of people, but not people. Kind of is kind of weird. Um, and there was a lot of stuff going on along with Saint Christopher, like I was saying about the Canaanites and people from Canaan, as I don't want to say racist, but almost within uh, that same area. Uh, People of the Canaan area were thought of very poorly. Like I said, they were thought of as being cannibalistic. When you get into stories where you got like Marco Polo and other travelers, if you look at the accounts that they brought back, the cyanocephaly aren't the only thing they talk about. They'll talk about people who have their whole head or their eyes and mouth were in the chest, or they walked with one leg, one big leg, and they bounced like a pogo stick, or this kingdom where there were these rabbits with swords, or different things like that. Um, so there's a lot of fishermen or sailor stories, and we'd say, well, why did they tell these stories? Well, if you've got a king and a queen who are footing the bill for you to travel around the world and do all of these things, you're expected to come back with some pretty fantastical stories. Now, the truth is better than fiction, but at the time, they wanted to hear stories of these wondrous creatures and these monsters that lay beyond. And you were going to tell these stories, especially whenever you were in the in the bar later on, and trying to make a name for yourself in history. You're going to tell some pretty fantastical stories. So it's not so much a matter of truth as it is how good was your story that you brought back. The fisherman
Mm.
story where, you caught a fish and it was this big the first time you told the story. The next time it was a foot bigger and a foot bigger every time you told the story. Well, that tends to be the case with these things, especially when you get into these kinds of creatures. Now, the cyanocephaly did not become this all important thing as far as historical for the Dogman until way up into the late 90s, early 2000s. Before that, it was seen simply for what it was, which was these far off historical stories that people traveled around and monsters laid here or whatever. Um, so we talk about historical events as far as Dogman. There's not really a whole lot except for when you look at certain werewolf stories that seem to be a little bit more factual, like the Beast of Jedivon.
Mm.
That's a really compelling story because we have a lot of historical events that travel along with that, and we're really not sure what took place there. There's people that think it was either of course, werewolf, or maybe it was a hyena that somebody had brought back, or it could have been this, or it could have been that. Uh, what people fail to realize is that historically there were a lot of wolf attacks there. That's why we have a fear
Yeah.
of wolves, and that's why a lot of wolves were killed off. You can look in Scandinavia and in the New World, and there were tons and tons of wolf attacks that took place on children and on women who were in the field or playing or whatever, and led to wolf hunts where we had bounties on wolves and did everything we could to wipe out wolves. So we can't displace known history and truth in order to form, okay, well, this is our story. This is where Dogman came from. That's just not true. I mean, because whenever we look at the historical parts of Dogman, it's a little few and far between. There's some native stories of things that are very similar to Dogman when we look at them, but not completely. When we get into Slavic lore, when we get into Native American lore, when we get into some of the Indo-European lore, or and then when you get over into Asia, once you get past the Arabic areas, Dogman almost seems to disappear completely. Anything similar to that, you have stories of different dog spirits or things like that, but never anything that's quite within the same scope.
Yes. Yeah. No, I partly agree. I partly agree. I tend to. I'll tell you why. Right. Is because um, there's an awful lot of documentation throughout like the centuries from different continents, thousands of miles away from
Hmm.
each other. And I understand people did travel quite widely. I mean, surprisingly, when you consider the form of travel they had, which was horses, which I think you can
Hmm.
only uh, ride a horse a certain amount of time before you have to rest it.
Right.
Um, and water it. It's not like, jumping into your Volvo and shifting off for like 200 miles. It's a task. It really was back in the day of traveling. Um, but there's many, many, many accounts from different continents, and they all have this same thread of truth. They have this same description which matches. Um, the African cynocephaly. Um, They were called the Cynoprospi, they were called,
Mhm.
um, or dog face in
Mhm.
Afrikaan, or no, Afrikaan, that was later, but African language. Um, some of them had beards. They were all covered in black fur. Despite their animalistic appearance, they were described as a tribe or tribes of more or less than human barbarians. The Dogman of Libya, for example, was said to they fought with the Libyan army as apparently an auxiliary force. This is all documented.
Mhm.
Discussing the cynocephali inhabited the lands of south of Egypt, alien states in Egypt. This is, I quote, right? This is
Mhm.
what was described of them.
Mhm.
And I quote: after traversing the Egyptian oasis, one is confronted for 7 whole days with utter desert. Beyond this live human cynoprospi along the road that leads to Ethiopia. It seems that these creatures live by hunting gazelles and antelope. Further, they are black in appearance. They have the head and teeth of a dog, and since they resemble this animal, it is very natural that I should mention them here in a book on animals. They are, however, not endowed with speech, but utter a shrill squeal. Beneath their chin hangs down a beard. We may compare it with the beards of dracones, and strong and very sharp nails cover their hands. Their whole body is covered with hair, another respect in which they resemble dogs. They have very swift of foot. They are very swift of foot and know the regions that are inaccessible. That is why they appear so hard to capture. So that's just with Africa, and that was from Egypt, that particular one. But you've got the tribes in Asia, Cynocephali of Asia, Central Asia, for example. Medieval traveller Giovanni de Pian del Caprine, that's a
Mhm.
mouthful, reports a tribe of Cynocephali living north of Lake Baikal, and was encountered by the army of Ogday Khan. In an English old document called The Wonders of the East, similar creatures are called Cynopinae. Cynopinae, Conopenae. They are described as having a horse-like mane, tusks, and breath like a blaze of fire. They are described in some sources as hairy giants. They are sometimes called Hemesine or half dogs, and said to inhabit the region of the extreme north. So you've got those in Asia. I do know about the ones in Japan. They're more spiritual.
Mhm.
They're more. It's where that's a horrible, horrible thing in Japan that they do. If I remember rightly, they starve a dog because they believe a dog is a guardian of the family. So they starve
Mhm.
the dog till it's absolutely famished, because they want to give the dog as much trauma as possible. They then uh, behead the dog, if I remember rightly. I did read about this. They behead the dog and then they bury the head. Um, or I think they bury the head, or no, I'll tell you what it is. As I understand it, they starve the dog, then they bury the dog with the head facing up above the ground. Then when it's absolutely traumatized, they then behead it, and then they keep the head in the house, um, and they preserve it somehow, and that then turns into a spirit, a dog protection spirit for that household.
Mm.
And it's called something. I've forgotten what the Japanese name is now for it. But yeah, that's more of a that's less of a dogman, but it's got the same traits in paranormal form. It's protection. Um, it is able to follow people. It's able to interact with people. Um, it's able, even in instances where the spirit in Japan of this dog entity is able to be seen by people, and it
Mm.
looks like a dog man. We would call it a dog man. It's got a head dog's face, the dog's
Right.
head. Um, Indian cynocephali exactly the same. As we pointed out, um,
Mhm.
inhabit the mountains in India, according to Theses or Stheses. Uh, he wrote this. Um, uh, On these, in brackets, Indian mountains live men with the head of a dog, whose clothing is the skin of wild beasts. They speak no language, but bark like dogs, and in this manner they make themselves understood by each other. Their teeth are larger than that of a dog, their nails like those of these animals, but longer and rounder. They inhabit the mountain as far as the river Indus. Their complexion is swarthy. They are extremely just, like the rest of the Indians with whom they associate. They understand the Indian language but are unable to converse, only barking or making signs with their hands and fingers by way of reply, like they're deaf and dumb, like they sign. They are called by the Indians Kayastrilli, in Greek Kynocephali. They live on raw meat, a number around 120,000 of them. All of this stuff is documented, not by a single person going off traveling and
Right.
coming back.
No. Yeah, I understand. And a lot of those stories, if you wanted to find them in book form, come in this one, Human Animals. So a lot of those stories are documented and more in this book that
Hold it up again. I'll just thank you. Thanks, Rob. Okay, right. Check that out, people. Human
yep,
animals. Yeah,
yep. One of many books that I have used in doing research on folklore. Um,
yeah,
in Japan, one of the ones that you were talking about, one of the Inu, I can't even think of the last name. I did a whole episode on. They call it the following dog.
yeah.
People might be traveling up in the mountains, and they would notice that one of these wolf-like things would be following behind them, and as long as they didn't wander off of the trail or fall or anything like that, they were fine. But if they did get lost, then supposedly these things would devour them or whatever. If they made it all the way home, then that thing would then become one of their protectors. If you look in Slavic lore, uh, well, not Slavic. Let's go into Arabian lore. If you go into Arabian lore, now everybody's heard of what they call a ghoul, right? Okay.
Mm,
So a lot of people think, well, a ghoul is going to look more like a vampire or a zombie or something like that. When you get to the original text where they talk about a ghoul is actually very canine like, but it does hang around cemeteries. So that rings pretty true with a lot of stories that we hear about modern dogman accounts. A lot of times, dogman is witnessed in and around cemeteries or swamps. So the same thing happened with these ghouls. When you get into Slavic folklore, there's something called the Drekjavak. The Drekjavak, depending on where you're at in Slavic communities, one may say, well, it looks kind of like a an infant, this mutated infant, and then a lot of other stories picture it as what we would call a dog man, and they're
mm,
almost always found lurking around cemeteries. When you go back into the old ancient Egyptian lore, where we look at Anubis, what was Anubis the god of? Well, he was the god of death. So he
yeah,
was always around where the dead were going to be at. And we have to take that lore and we have to look at it and how does it apply? Because there's some interesting things that
yeah.
nowadays now accounts lead back to. So whenever I dispute some of the cyanocephaly stuff, I'm not disputing dogman. I'm not disputing history. I'm disputing whether or not these things that we're seeing in certain lore actually fit in with what we're looking at. Yes, there's been a ton of different things that have come from different continents, different countries that have to do with the cyanocephaly. Do I think that they're accurate? Probably not, because there's a lot of stuff when you have travelers who are traveling around are going to tell fantastical tales.
Mm.
Uh, Now, I'm not totally discounting it. I'm just saying take it for what it is. Understand the truth behind what these things are.
Yeah.
The same can be said of folklore. If you look at Native American folklore, there are some things in Native American folklore that can be interpreted by us to be something more dogman like. However, if you speak with a lot of the Native Americans, that's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about this upright Canid type thing. The closest you're going to get to with that is, I think it was covered by Hammerson Peters out of Canada, and he talks about the devil monkeys. And the devil monkey really very closely mirrors what we get in these modern day accounts of dogman, except for one thing. These things seem to travel in packs, and ours don't. A lot of dogman accounts. I mean, I'm not saying that all of them. If you look at the story of Palmyra Wolfpack, they were a pack of these things. But most of the stories include a singular dogman, an encounter with one, and no more. Some accounts do have packs of these things running around, but when you look at the devil monkey stories that come out of Canada, Alaska, the Appalachians, the Ozarks, very similar, but in a lot of ways somewhat different, which leads me to believe that there may be something more primate driven by these things. Let's look at the typical description of a dog man. When people encounter a dog man, they'll notice, okay, the canine head, definitely. The very pointed ears, often it looks like they have a mane. More times than not, they have the rear legs of a dog, okay?
Mm.
But they have the hands of a human, somewhat human like, and they stand up and they have a broad chest, very muscular, very flat, and they'll talk about, well, it's built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. Guess what? Canines don't have a chest like that.
Mm.
Primates do. Different baboons and things like that are very similar like that, but canines don't. And they'll talk about, well, I ran into a female dog man, and the female dog man had breasts. Well, if it was a canine, it's not going to have normal breasts. It's not going to have just a pair like a human being does.
Mm.
It's going to have just like a dog any other canine would. But no, it just had two. Well, that's a primate. That's not a canine. So
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes, are we looking at something and giving it a name because it fit what we think a werewolf would look like? And maybe it's something else. Maybe in some cases it is a canine. Maybe in some cases it's a primate. Maybe in some cases it's something much more paranormal. I think there are a lot of things happen simultaneously, and that's why it's very important to again follow the evidence and let the evidence lead us, because everything I just said, as far as it could be a primate, it could be this, could be completely wrong. Those are hypotheses. Those are me wondering about things, but let the evidence lead you where it belongs. If the evidence leads down the road of the cyanocephaly, fine, I'll eat my words happily. But you better have the evidence to prove it. If you're going to make big claims, you better have big evidence. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with expecting people to get the evidence.
See, I um I've seen one.
Yep. I don't doubt it. I believe you have. I've seen Sasquatch, and I've seen ghosts, and I've seen UFOs. So I
Yeah.
believe that you've seen one.
Um and I've kind of analyzed it myself in my head. I
Mhm.
tried my very best to analyze it in my head over the years and to try and sort of ascertain if I was embellishing on something which was only half of what I saw. Do you know what
Right.
I mean? Something which, you know, sort of like I elaborated on more than what I saw in my
Right.
head. Because as you said, maybe these things, because they're supernatural, a certain amount of, you know, to me, they're supernatural because of their ability. Um, like Arthur C. Clarke, he once said, you know, if a civilization who is advanced enough um, came, you know, made itself known, then to us that it would be like magicians. You know,
Exactly.
I do paraphrase. I don't know the actual, but they're paraphrasing. But that's
You
basically
did
it.
quite well. That was quite close.
Thank you, thank you. But
Mm,
so I but I still can't get the image out of my head
right.
of it. It's sort of like ingrained, and it
Mhm.
is like you just said. It's basically like that,
Yeah.
how it looked. The only difference I would say is the mane. It didn't have so much hair around here. It wasn't
Mhm.
so wolfy. Um, it was more, if you like, its mouth was a lot wider. It came back further than this.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, and it smiled. I
Yep.
swear it smiled. It looked, it smiled, it comprehended I was watching it. It wanted
Mhm.
me to watch it, and it smiled. You could see its mouth kind of going up, and I just kind of never forgot it, and I don't think I ever will forget it. And I can't blame it being on pareidolia because there was nothing to remotely contrast against it, which could be taken as pareidolia because it
Right.
was a one-off. It was so unusual, so out of place. But you know what, Rob? What if it isn't out of place? Like you said, what if the supernatural is natural
I think
and
it
the
is.
paranormal is normal?
Mhm.
What if it's not that the Dogman was out of place? What if it was me that was out of place in that area?
Mhm.
What if it was actually it is us which has lost all of our supernatural abilities? The
Oh, I
only
think we
su
have. I
well, the
agree
only
with you.
su well, the only supernatural ability we still have left that I can gather, really, is, you ever go into a room? Have you ever been into a place and you just have a gut feeling that it's bad, it's
Oh, yes.
wrong? You have a gut
Absolutely.
feeling that that chap, that person over the other side of the room, there's something wrong with them, and you
Mhm.
don't really wanna get, you know, talk to them or anything like that. That gut feeling is part of our old supernatural ability.
Mhm.
We also have another supernatural ability that I believe, um, and that's an ability for we sometimes will know, we will think, we will postulate on something, a little bit like AI does at the moment.
Mhm.
AI will listen in on any conversation. So you may be at home, you'll talk to your wife, your husband, your daughter, your son about maybe a car, about maybe, "Oh, and I need," sort of like, "Oh, my phone's packed up." The and next thing, you'll see adverts on your AI which are related to what you were talking about. It may be an advert for a car, maybe an advert for a new phone coming on
Mhm.
social media on this, because it takes on board what you've said, even though they say that they don't listen in, but believe me, I think they do. Um, uh, and I think we have that innate ability as well. Many times I've had it where, I've you could say been fortunate, but I've been into a place and I've had that, feeling that, I've kind of been there before.
Mhm. Deja vu.
I've had
Yep.
Yeah, I've had that feeling where it's been familiar, and, um I've also had that feeling where I just know that I've postulated or thought about something, and then the next day it's happened. It's
Mhm.
appeared, or I've seen that red car I was just thinking about. And I think that is also a ability that we have, a last vestige of our that coupled with our gut feeling is something that, we should hang on to and, very much and treat as a superhuman ability. But on the grand scheme of things, I think we've drawn away, Rob, from nature. And now nature, a lot of what is in nature, it to us is superhuman,
Mhm.
is supernatural
Of
because we're so
course.
alienated from it, you know? I mean, look at us. We're talking to each other in basically bricks and mortar, surrounded probably, surmising, surrounded by more concrete, bricks and mortar, with
Mhm.
more people living in concrete bricks and mortar houses. We're kind of like in, like Colonel Custer, we're surrounding ourselves in little enclaves of these little concrete villages,
Right.
and nature is out there somewhere,
Mhm.
when we used to be out there.
Mhm.
But we're not anymore, we're in here. So, of course, we're getting more and more alienated from it, which is a pity. But it also doesn't help because the one thing I don't understand is why do you think that they seem to, especially Dogman, are becoming more prevalent now, Rob? The people eyewitness accounts are becoming more common. Why do you think that is at the moment?
Well, there's a lot of layers to that question. I think it's an honest, logical question, and I and others have discussed this before. And like I said, I think there's a lot of layers to it. One, I think you have to look at the you have to look at the individual eyewitness accounts. One, the subject is very popular. Because the subject is very popular and because people are people and because you have people who have a fondness for the idea of werewolves, or you have people who have a fondness for some of these different things. They're going to become I want to be involved in that. I want to be a part of that. I want my story to I need to have a story. My story needs to be told. My story, I can come up with a story that's better than that. Or maybe they're not lying, they're not hoaxing. We have to look at mental illness too. I've worked in the past with mentally ill people. Um, and we have to look at that. We have to be honest about that because some of it is delusional thought, where people will believe in something, you know, that uh, hasn't really occurred. In their mind, it has. Um, and it's really difficult to pick out. But I think there is a lot that is going on with the Dogman thing, and I think once you become aware of the other side, of the other things that are happening, of the supernatural, of the cryptozoological, of the ufological, once you open up and that initial shock is blown away, that these things don't exist, you start to look, you start to hear and listen and see things that you didn't see before. And as someone who spends a lot of time in the woods and always has, once you've encountered something for real, 100 yards away from something or less in flesh and blood or whatever you want to call it, you start to then question events that happened previously when you were in the woods or you were somewhere. Well, wait a minute. I remember hearing a sound similar to that 20 years ago. Or I remember I was sitting in a tree stand hunting and something shot past me and I just kind of blew it off as a shadow. What if that's that same thing? These are the same woods. Maybe that was another one of those same things. And you start to question everything that ever happened prior to you. So, it's not so much maybe that they're happening more, maybe it's we're noticing more. Maybe we're becoming more awake, more in tune. We're looking at these things for what they are and trying to figure it out. And because of that, maybe the fact that we notice them, they notice us.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. Through the ages, there's been the thought. You're quite right. The thought of us transforming into animals, um, because of absorbing their supernatural ability is
Hmm.
very well documented and still happens in certain tribes across the world.
Right.
The earliest, the earliest known, if you like, dogman or werewolf, really, werewolf or transformation that happened was recorded in the Epic of Gilgamesh, wasn't it?
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
2100 BCE. Uh, and that was where the story of King Lycan of Arcadia, who tested the omniscience of Zeus by serving him a meal of human flesh, ends with the enraged god transforming the king into a wolf. The
Hmm.
tale is the origin of the term lycanthropy,
Yep.
lycanthropy, derived from the Greek lykos, wolf, and anthropos, human. It's one of these things where, and also we have to. There is a division with lycanthropes. It's different to werewolf. A lot of times, with when the term lycanthrope was very much used in history for people, as you said, who have mental illness.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were
I mean,
deemed,
it's still considered a mental illness delusional factor today, just the same as the Wendigo uh, one. I forget what they call it, Wendigo something or another, and that's where people believe that they are becoming a Wendigo, that they need to kill and eat human beings, and the same thing is true with that lycanthropy. Um, and let me inject one more thing. I know I interrupted you, but let me interject one more thing. When we look at the old stories of werewolves, we misinterpret a werewolf in the original stories to werewolves of Hollywood. The werewolves of original stories were human beings who were either cursed or had a magical item that would allow them to turn into a wolf, not into a half wolf, half human, a wolf. In a lot of the old depictions where they show, especially the wood carvings and things like that, where they show a wolf standing on two legs was simply a way of making sure that the audience, whoever viewed this piece of art, would understand that this wolf was a human, not just a wolf. It wasn't so much that the werewolves walked around on two legs, it's the way that it was depicted in artwork. So there's a difference in that. Whenever you get into the werewolves and the Wolfman and everything of Hollywood, people have even asked, well, if you go out dogman hunting, do you need to take silver bullets? Well, silver bullets were never brought into the story of Wolfman and Werewolf until the 1930s in Hollywood. That wasn't a part of the original story. A lot of people try to link that back to the Beast of Jedivon. It's not. It's not. That was added in way later.
Yeah.
This story of when the
Well,
moon was
it
full and things like that.
yeah, it's a trope. You
It
know,
is. It
it's used
absolutely
very
is.
heavily as a trope. It's reimagined. It's codified. I mean, in the 18th, 19th centuries, through Gothic literature,
Yes.
cheap serialized penny dreadfuls, if you like.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, the stories often depicted werewolves as tragic, cursed figures,
Hmm.
and the archetype was cemented in the 20th century by sort of films like Werewolf in London, which I'm not talking the modern Werewolf in London. I'm talking the 1935 one,
Right.
the old black and white one. The 1941 Lon Chaney one, the Wolfman. You know,
Mhm.
it's a full moon. You got to chain me to the chair. Don't let me out. That one.
Yep. Yep.
Um, uh, and those permanently kind of like embedded modern werewolf tropes, if you like, into the popular consciousness that we
Absolutely.
see and know today. I mean, I'm not saying, like you're not saying, that there isn't some historical evidence for some which I can't account for. One wasn't it Peter Stump was a very credible, very strange account.
Yes.
Peter Stump was German. It was for just an account, I believe. You can put me right here if you want, but please do, because I probably this is probably straight off the cuff. Um, Peter Stump, there was local killings happening in this
Yep.
village, and they tracked it down to being a wolf, and he was sighted. I think it was a white wolf, if I remember rightly.
I believe so.
And there was this guy called Peter Stump, and he came forward and he said, "It was me. I done these." And they said, "Well,
Hmm.
hang on a minute, you're a man." He said, "No, no, no, I'm not. I transform into this hound, this werewolf entity." And he owned up. He owned up to it. He fessed up to it.
Right.
And yeah, it wasn't very nice. They tied him to a wheel and they tortured him, cut him, and they like beheaded him in the end, and his family, I believe, as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Yeah, but he was that was a credible account, and it was made all the more credible because it was quite early. It was a 15th century, I believe that
Yeah, I
was.
think so. And he
Um,
attributed it to a belt that he had.
yes, that's
Yep.
right. Which is there's two things which are very little known about werewolves. One is a lot of accounts, old accounts, talk about a pelt or a
Hmm.
belt made of a pelt of a skin of a werewolf, a pelt of skin of a wolf that they
Right.
wear to transform. And secondly, Rob is completely right when he says this whole nonsense with silver bullets, forget about. But there is many accounts of a needle being used to turn a werewolf into a human again, a silver
Yes.
needle. I've
Yeah.
heard this quite a few times. But the bullets, forget about them. That's just Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, there
Um,
was a lot of old beliefs that had to do with silver, so people were right about that, as far as silver being tied with God, and that these things were evil, and that the introduction of silver at any point would force this thing to change back to its original form, or you could disarm it, or dispel a demon. That's why a lot of old uh, relics actually prefer silver rather than gold. They supposedly were more powerful if you use silver.
yeah, I also understand, I don't know how true this is, that iron. iron is another thing which is it affects quite a few cryptids. Iron, they don't
Yeah,
like.
yeah, now you're getting into the Fae when you get into
Yes,
iron.
yes,
That's
yeah,
where and it's iron that had to have been worked by man. It can't be just raw iron.
that's
If
right.
it's raw iron that
Yeah.
came out of the ground, it had no effect. But whenever you get into stories of the Fae and the what they call the Shay or the Shah,
Yeah.
that's where the story of the Banshee comes from. The Banshee, a lot of people think the Banshee is this horrible thing that goes around screaming at everybody, and that story is so way off, and you know that well. The Banshee was actually the protector of certain families in Ireland and Scotland.
Mm, yeah.
And whenever these people were close to passing away, that's when the Banshee would show up and wail and cry at the passing of these people. Now, Banshee, the name Banshee actually means Lady of the Hill because the hill was called a Shay or Shay. And Ban or Bon means beautiful girl. So beautiful girl of or lady of the hill. So she was the one who would come around and she would wail and cry because she knew that one of these people was about to pass away. So yeah, and when we talk about iron and stuff like that, that of course, every supernatural thing, including the show Supernatural, included iron. Iron that had been worked by people, been worked by man. Oh well, they could stop spirits. It could stop demons. It could do this. It was even brought in some of the Studio Ghibli movies.
Mm,
Um, Princess Mononoke. Princess
yeah.
Mononoke, and that a pig, a giant pig, was shot with one of these iron balls and made it become a demon because it was so afraid of dying. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is all tied in. There's a lot of folklore that floats around all together.
Do
It's
you
really
think
interesting.
it is? And I tell you what, it's rare to find somebody like you. Honestly, it's your scope of knowledge is extraordinary.
Well, thank you. I am a nerd.
Honestly, brilliant. Long may you be a nerd.
Well, thank you.
um, they talk about they bang on about disclosure with the UAPs. Do you think that
Ah,
will have any effect? Just say, right, this is only a hypothesis, right? This
uh,
is only just like um. So if they had disclosure
hmm
and the aliens were real, and they're well, that we know that there's something there.
right.
But if they owned up and said, "Look, yes, we are aware, and we have been for quite some considerable time, that aliens have been visiting or are among us," um, do you think that would, Rob, have any effect on bringing forward the cryptid side of things? Would it cement the cryptid side of things further as being truth, or do you think would they go hand in hand?
I think to a point, definitely they go hand in hand. And I think the same could probably be said of things that are paranormal, which is why I think they have to be very careful with what they disclose. The same could be said about disclosure of, Bigfoot. If they were to disclose Bigfoot's real, well, what would that mean? Well, would it have an effect on logging? Would it have an effect on the environment and different things like that? Yes, definitely. But what if it means something more? What if once we are confronted by the actual physical Bigfoot, uh, to where the populace can actually see it on a daily basis, see their activities, see what they can do, what they can't do, isn't that gonna open up a whole lot more questions of, "Well, what does this mean? What does that mean?" And I think that disclosure is gonna do that. I think if we have disclosure about aliens, that's gonna completely disrupt our the way our society is built. I think it's gonna disrupt religion completely. Religion is going to completely fall apart, which we have to be very careful about. Um, in working, okay, so why would this be such a big thing? Okay, so I told you I used to work with the people who have mental illnesses and stuff. So if you look at someone who has what we call a fixed delusion, a fixed delusion is a delusion that somebody has built their entire identity and understanding of reality around. So it's like a keystone belief, and everything else is built on top of that. And I want to work with trying to help you come back to reality. I have to be careful about that fixed illusion, because that fixed illusion, if I can disintegrate that fixed illusion, everything you believe falls down like a house of cards. Well, what if we have that with religions and other things like that, where those are fixed beliefs? Your understanding of reality and everything is going to completely fall apart. Where does that leave us? A lot of people don't know how to deal with that. A lot of people are too vested or invested in certain beliefs, even within cryptozoology and the paranormal. Like we talked about earlier, people are very invested in religious beliefs and their views of what it means to them. What does their life mean? What is the next life? Is there more? Is there less? Is it, so we're at risk of completely tearing down what society at large believes in. So disclosure has to be very, very careful. Um, we want, as investigators, our first blush is we want them to come forward and say, yes, Roswell happened. Yes, this happened. That happened. There are aliens. There are grays. There are the Nordics. There are reptilians. There are whatever we want to believe. But what does that mean? You have to look at the broader picture, the bigger picture of when you drop that pebble in the water, it makes a ripple, and that ripple goes very far out. You want the drop in the water. That's the part that you're worried about, is that drop in the water, but you don't look at the ripples. They go all the way across the lake once you drop that one pebble. And
Yeah,
that's what happens with disclosure. You have to
yeah.
realize there's a ripple effect that's going to come
Mm.
back. And most of it is stuff that we haven't even thought about yet.
But yes, honestly, I'm blown away. You're quite right. You're quite right. That's a very good analysis, and I think spot on analysis of disclosure. Uh, I, I, I mean, we haven't got time now to go into it, but I've got my own mind on disclosure.
Right.
But I think we'll definitely have to sit down and have a chat about that as well,
Oh, I think
at some
so.
point.
I've had
Um,
a ball.
it's been brilliant, isn't it? It's been
Yeah,
really good. Honestly,
it
it's
has.
like kind of we've chucked it all in there, and it's like kind of we've given it a good stir around. And
Exactly.
um, Rob, I'm gonna just bring up. I've got to bring up about your book. And I've got to ask you a question about your book, really,
Go
for
for it.
people at home. Uh, right. Now, with this, I know you're writing another one at the moment, but
Uh-huh.
this Anomology, Volume One, uh,
Yep.
yeah, your next book. Try and the title. Try and do it so that I can say it a bit better.
Not even. I'm going to invent new words. So so keep,
Anomology. That's it. Anomology. And
yes.
I'm sorry.
So
Anomology.
so yeah, keep in mind Animalogy Volume 1 is volume 1 of probably 5 books. So there's going to be volume 2, which I'm working on right now, which is evidence and analysis. Then we're going to have volume 3, 4, and 5, and they're all textbooks. They're to help you understand what you're looking at and to approach these things from a good, safe point of view for yourself. It's to understand that bias happens. We all have bias, We all need to use critical thinking whenever we're looking at these things. There's nothing wrong with skepticism. There's a difference between being skeptical of something and being just a naysayer.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with looking at evidence, and how do you want that evidence gathered? How do you want that evidence presented? And
Mm.
how if you want to be the investigator, how do you do it? And that's what I
Yeah.
want to pass along, is that knowledge, that information to you, so that you can then go out and you can gather the information and you can make a difference in things that we've been talking about. Maybe you're the one who's going to force, disclosure on Bigfoot or ghosts, or maybe the real truth behind UFOs.
Yeah. So you're so um in a sentence, what would you like people to get from this book? What would you like them to have a takeaway from? What is it that I mean, if you, I know it's a hard thing to do in a sentence, but for people at home, uh, looking at the book, and to be honest, Rob, there's a lot of books about Bigfoot and Dogman, and there's
There is.
untold and paranormal and ghosts and everything else. What is the main takeaway? And I've got a fair idea what it is, and I think it's a fantastic book. But what's your summary, your main summary that you think people will take away with this book that they'll gain from it?
Let evidence lead you to the answer. Use critical thinking, be patient, and don't close your mind to possibilities.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, honestly, I've got it's coming up to 2 hours. It is 2 hours now,
Yeah.
Rob. I don't want to end it. I really don't want to end it. It's been an absolute blast, hasn't it? It's been great.
It has. Just let me know and I'll come back and we'll do this again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, for sure. We'll do that. Rob, thank you very, very much indeed. I do appreciate it. And people, listen, all the links to his Facebook, his book, the YouTube, and go
Mhm.
show some love to the YouTube. Just like, subscribe it, take a look at his stuff. You never know. You may learn a thing or two, honestly. And if you don't learn a thing or two, it may give you another perspective.
Mhm.
But all of us should have the humility to know none of us know this. None of us know it all. We really
Not a
don't. We're all
not a one of
learning.
us. Yeah.
So just go give it some love, subscribe to it. He's a lovely guy, and look, I just appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know.
Thank you. All right, bye, mate. Right, okay. I just to wrap, thank you very, very much for listening. Do appreciate it. And what a lovely guy, honestly. The brain on him. Wow. I was like blown away. He knew stuff like what the flipping heck, you know? But yeah, definitely got to have him on again. Because I want to hit him with a bit of UFO stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and sideline him with some UFO stuff. That's what I'm gonna try and do. But no, it's been great. Absolutely enjoyed it. I hope you've taken something away from this, and just had a bit of a giggle, maybe, and a laugh, and kind of, uh, 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 you know, um, yeah, that's the main thing. What we do, we just like bring different perspectives up, and just sort of chuck 'em around and see what happens. Anyway, listen, thank you very, very much for watching. Really do appreciate it. And, see you again soon. Bye.